Hello, welcome everybody. It is Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. My name is Rachel. How are you all? I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. The question now is, do I look as tired as I feel? Because I suspect that both is very true. I am exhausted. I hope that you are all well rested and feeling really good. I just got back last night from Calgary. It was City Calgary. Rebecca and I were together all weekend. We had an absolute blast, and I hope that you guys enjoy hearing a little bit about the show as we cover things today. I have quite a few things to share with you. I am going to keep the show a little bit shorter than normal. We sometimes get quite long streams now. We'll sort of, be pushing an hour and a half, and I'm going to try to keep it a little bit more succinct today, just because I am absolutely exhausted. I slept last night for about 12, 13-ish hours by the time I got out of bed, and I drove for 10 hours yesterday. Nora did awesome. She did amazing on the road. She did really, really, really well. But we've had a really busy weekend, and so I would love to share about it with you. I think what we'll do is we'll just cover a little bit about sort of some of the things that are going on this summer and some of the knit-alongs, spin-alongs, all the things going on in the back, in the background of the woolen spinning community, and then I will share with you the Knit City video that I put together. It's not like super long, but it's a good like 8 to 10 minutes. So for you guys to watch. It'll also give my voice a bit of a rest. So let's just pop, you know what? Let's run the credits, and then after we'll talk about all that stuff. Caprice said in the chat, she said, I can't believe how long you drove. I drove 4 hours to Virginia Beach this weekend. That was plenty. Yeah, I hear you. I think we are really used to driving really super long distances here. Like everything in Canada is like really far apart. So we and as a family, we do a lot of road trips and we go a lot of places, but this was a bit much. And to be doing it by myself, normally Mike would do all of the driving. And to be honest, I don't normally do a lot of the driving when we're doing long distance stuff. But I think for this type of a trip and for how quickly it was and back and forth so quickly, I would have liked to have been able to trade off the driving a little bit. Maybe drive 2 hours, drive 2 hours, drive 2 hours kind of thing. Yeah, I need to think about that some more over the next couple of years, but those are definitely things that I am thinking about for sure. So in the woolen spinning community, if you sort of join our community, you can either join on the Ravelry group or you can come behind the scenes and join the Slack channel, and that is through patreon.com/woolen spinning. We've got 2 spin-along make-alongs that are left this summer. We finished Tour de Fleece and we finished Tour de Fleece Femme. I never intended to participate in Tour de Fleece Femme because I knew that I would be gone basically for the whole week. But we do have Spindle Spun season going on until the autumnal equinox in September. And we also have the Emotional Chicken Along that starts yesterday. So people were casting on their chickens. And I will probably live vicariously through you all and watch from the sidelines with your chickens, because to be honest with you, I don't think I have the bandwidth for chicken knitting. I've got a couple of deadlines that are looming, and my time is being cut into very significantly at the moment. And Rebecca and I had a great chat about it this weekend, and I felt really freed from maybe participating this time around. So I'm really looking forward to showing all of your chickens on the podcast and under community participation. There is a thread in the Ravelry group. There's also I think with the chickens, we'll just share on the general channel of the Slack channel. Of course, Spindle Spun season has its own Slack channel because we celebrate spindles in this community all year round. It's just an opportunity to hyper focus on spindles through the summer and the winter if you are in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's sort of what's going on with that stuff this summer. And then we've got our Year of Yarn, which is ongoing. So this is a book study over 2 years. So it actually should be Years of Yarn. Guided by Sarah Anderson's book, The Spinner's Book of Yarn Designs. Spinning Pearls is the monthly content release from me. It's all the previous content that we've already covered that covers all of the topics in this book, and it steadily trickles out throughout the month. The Wool Circle is the stream that Rebecca organizes. It's every other Tuesday at the same time as the live stream, so it will be happening next Tuesday. And Rebecca's doing all of the deep diving into all of these topics. So right now she's looking at singles, and we're actually just tying up singles. We're going to be done next show. I will have a new topic to introduce to you guys, which I am super excited about. We will be looking at yarn structures for the next while, like all the way through the fall and into the winter, way into like March. So if you have been thinking about joining our study and joining this book along with us and wanting to jump on board and kind of wondering about where would be a really great place to dip your toe in and to get involved, this is the time. September will be a hard pivot into yarn structures. We'll be looking at all the complicated yarn structures like opposing ply and hauser yarn, and we'll be looking at all the different yarns that people use for sock structures. And these are not sock yarns, but people use them for socks and for creating sock fabric. So if that's something that interests you, now is a great time to jump in. September will be the beginning of everything. So September, Queer Staplers is the book study group that meets twice a month. They meet at 12 noon Pacific on the second and the fourth Thursday of every month. They will be diving in, starting in September, into all of these structures. Queries and explorations will continue as per usual. We have our deep dive on the second and fourth Saturday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific. I sort of let the group take us where we go. The next couple of meetings we are focusing on carding. So this coming Saturday we're going to pull out my hand crank carder and we're going to go through some tips and tricks of carding and just share as a melting pot. A brain melt, if you will, all of our sort of things that we found works really well, helping those who are newer carders to get up and running and be a bit more successful, all of that kind of stuff. So we're looking at carding right now. So we're sort of doing our own thing in queries. The syllabus, Rebecca, thank you so much for reminding me. The syllabus for yarn structures will be out very soon. It will be out in the next couple of weeks. So for those who are on the fence about whether or not they're wanting to jump in, now is the time to have a look at that over the next couple of weeks. I'll be linking to it regularly in our stuff through Patreon and through the show notes of the show and the Wool Circle and all that kind of stuff, and you guys can have a look. We also, as part of the Slack channel, have all of these different Zoom groups that meet that are all grassroots groups that have started as a result of the community's needs. And Spin Group meets every Tuesday. I wanted to jump in with you guys this morning, but honestly, there was too much to get ready for this because I didn't have yesterday because I was driving. But they meet every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific. Basically, they meet before the live stream, which is really cool. The other Spin Group that meets on Thursdays meets so that Europe and Australia can meet. And that's at 8 a.m. British summer time. Fiber prep group and weaving group, they just alternate. If you're not a weaver yet, you can jump in. It doesn't matter. You can listen to some of the wisdom that gets shared every week, but usually it's sort of similar to Spin Group where it's just a catch-all socialization opportunity. I love these Friday groups. I think it's a really great opportunity for people to connect, and I try to go as much as I possibly can. Book club, I have lost the thread with where we are at with book club, and it's only because I've been away. I think they are in the midst of picking a new book and getting organized, and then we will I will let you guys know what the book is and when they are meeting next. Yes, Naomi wants to go next year with Nora. Yes, that would be so great. That would be so great. It would be so great to have the two girls there. Yeah. Next year is Vancouver. So anybody who will be here in the greater Vancouver area on the first weekend in October 2025, that will be Knit City, Vancouver. All right. Knit City, Calgary. There's a few highlights. There were a few extremely low lights. I shouldn't say a few. There was one extremely low light. I am so excited to share this with you guys. I am going to mute myself in the background. You won't see me for the next little while. This I put together. There is no talking through it. It is just music. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you guys on the other side. I was muted. I'm so sorry, you guys. It was wonderful. We drove a lot. We went a long ways to get there. We had just a fantastic time, and as you can see, there was a lot of highlights. So maybe the best thing is for me to do is to share with you some of the highlights of sort of what I got, because that will cover some of the things that were in the the video that you guys were asking about. So let's start first with the fleeces that I got, because I'm going to talk about all this stuff in just a moment. Let's start with the fleeces. So I think what I'll do, I'm not sure what the best thing to do is in terms of showing you guys. So maybe you can tell me what is easiest when I'm showing it to you. And if we need to switch cameras, just tell me. So we stumbled on the first day, like almost immediately, we stumbled across All Wound Up, and they're based out of Castor, Alberta, and it's Megan. She's a large animal vet, and so is her partner, and he does large animals, but they have different specialties. So she was telling me a lot about what they feed the sheep to get fleece. They're a dual purpose sheep. They are fiber and meat. And she really focuses on wanting to get really high quality fleece off of her sheep. She also has a lot of sheep. I can't remember how many head count she said, because she did tell me, and I'm so sorry that I forgot. I feel like it's 150 or 200. It's quite a large ranch. And she was saying that, you know, the reality is she can't coat them and she can't do all the things with them. Like, she has to sort of be realistic about how much she can do, but she can have the sheep grow incredible fleece. She also has a sea cam full of fleece, and so she brought 13 to the show, 13 that she thought people would be interested in. And I saw the Corriedale first, so I pulled these out of the bags this morning to show you guys. They're still dirty. I haven't washed them. I was going to wash them last night, but honestly, I was running on 2 hours of sleep. I'd driven 10 hours, like there was no way. We had to pick up my husband on the way through the Fraser Valley, for those who know where I live. We picked him up on the way through, and he like opened the door to say hello, and I was like, I'm going there. And he was like, yeah, I figured you were done driving. Like, I was like out of it. So I jumped in the passenger seat. He drove the last hour. It was the last like half an hour, because we had to go to my mom's house, so we weren't going home. He works about 20 minutes from home east of us. And the truck smelled like fleece. So he got in the truck and he was like, what is that smell? So even though it was in the truck bed in the back under the tonneau, you could smell it. So this is the Corriedale. It is just beautiful. So by the time we got home, there was no way I was going to start washing locks last night. I am going to try to wash a pound of this today and sort of start it going. These fleeces are huge. If I want a photo of the sheep, there's numbers on the bag that they write as they do a light skirt and throw the fleeces into the bag. And she said just to email her and she'll send me a photo of each of these sheep, which I think I might do. So this, like I said, is the Corriedale, and you really can't see, but the crimp in this is incredible. And it's a young Corrie. And then the other one that I was looking at that she showed me almost immediately is a young Rambouillet. This is quite dirty, but it comes out clean, clean, clean. Look at that crimp. Can you see that in there? That crimp. It's just incredible. And this is soft, soft, soft. Rebecca and I were actually bouncing ideas about maybe doing this lock by lock, which would be a huge commitment, but I could sort of steadily work away at it and have it and just sort of, you know, do a few every day and just, you know, have it on my counter and just work through a little bit every day. I'm not sure that I will do that. I think I'm going to wash a pound and see what it looks like when it comes out. My concern is getting it clean. So I'm going to have to use really hot water and be very, very careful with it. And then the last one is a BFL Corrie Cross. So I was actually torn between this one and the Corriedale. And I was sort of like, oh, maybe I should just get the BFL Corrie Cross. I'll leave the Corrie. But I was kind of waffling because I really love a good solid medium wool. You guys have followed me long enough to know how much I love that. And I really was loath to leave the Corriedale behind. So this is the Corrie BFL Cross. And it is just beautiful. So long, slightly longer than the Corrie. than the 100% Cori, but look at that crimp. Just gorgeous. And this is going to wash up really beautifully as well. There is a certain amount of VM in it. There's quite a bit of sawdust in it, in all of it. And Megan and I talked about it for quite a few minutes, and she's like, you know, by the time you shake it out before you wash it, you get it washed and then you card it up. She's like, you know, and depending on what you want to do with the BFL Cori, I probably am going to want to comb that. I'm going to do a sample and just see. I might card it and then comb it and not worry about whether the tips and the butts are aligned. You know, I think all of that stuff will come out, and it'll be really lovely. And she was selling them for a steal. I got each fleece, massive 7-8 pound fleeces. Well, 5 to 8 pounds. I think the BFL Cori is a little bit lighter, just from looking at them this morning, but like $35 Canadian for each fleece. She's got a CCAM full. So if anybody wants her email address and would be interested in chatting with her, I will give you her email address. I don't have it right here, and I'm not going to post it on the live stream, but if you're in the Slack channel, just reach out to me if you're interested in chatting with Megan. She was lovely. It was a highlight of the first day, right first thing in the morning. So because I had these 3 big fleeces that I was dragging around, I took that back to the hotel room right away. Yeah, and Rebecca took some samples of all of it too. She took a few, and then she's going to let me know if she wants any, which will be really fun. So she's going to wash it and see what it does. That'll be really fun. So that was the highlight for me, was getting the fleece. That was really what I was hoping for, even though Knit City is not a fleece show, and it is not a... It's not a spinners heavy show. That's changing, and there's more and more spinning there. Every time I go, there's more and more spinning. There's more and more fiber. There's more and more just sort of all of that stuff. But this was the first time that I had seen like big full fleeces, and they just happened to be gorgeous. So that was really wonderful. That was really cool. Probably the best thing to do to chat about my sort of some of the things that I got. I'll show you this next. This was from Bramble Ridge, which she's local to me. Megan lives like half an hour down the highway from me, but I really wanted to support her at the show because she had done a colorway for Knit City Calgary. So this is called Giddy Up, and I will give you guys a moment to guess who named it. Who named this colorway Giddy Up? If you guys don't guess, or if a couple of you who know her don't guess, I would be very surprised. Anyways, this is BFL Massam. It's a 50-50 blend of BFL and Massam. And Megan developed the colorway for Knit City, Calgary. And yeah, oh, sorry, it's not 50-50. I totally read the label wrong. I just glanced at it. It was like, oh yeah, there's 5s in there. It's 50-50. It's 75% BFL, 25% Massam. So what I thought was really neat about this, she also had this dyed on Rambouillet, and which for those who don't know is French merino. You guys know how much I love the medium wools. We had done a few years ago, it's more than a few years ago now, a Massam study, and it's one of my favorite fibers. And I've spun singles with Massam. I'm very tempted to spin this as a singles. And this would be a great blend for socks. It would be hardy because it's a little bit more medium. It's a little teeny tiny bit toothier, but still soft. And yeah, I thought, yeah, I want to play with that and see what that's all about. So 75-25 BFL Massam. And for those who don't know, Massam is spelled M-A-S-H-A-M. So this was something that came up when we did our Massam study. When we first started talking about it, I think I pronounced it on the show Masham, and I've heard people in North America calling it Masham. But then I talked to Eve, who is in Britain, and these are British sheep, and she's like, no, it's Massam, M-A-S-S-A-M. That's how you say it, even though it's spelled with the S-H. So beautiful colorway, super excited to spin this at some point later this year, and really pleased about that. So I'm going to talk about the spindles last because spindling, we kind of tend to dive down a bit of a rabbit hole when we start talking about spindles. So I'm going to talk about this beauty here, which some of you will recognize it, and this little beauty, the Malacate spindle here in just a moment. So I'll talk about those in a sec. Let's just cover some other stuff first. I did buy some unspun, which I said after I knit my Ember sweater out of unspun and Massam singles, there's a theme here, people, Massam singles, I had kind of thought that I would probably not really want to knit with the unspun again, just because I really enjoyed it. But I really, really love knitting with like low piece style yarn, singles, that kind of stuff. And so I thought, well, it's sort of the spinner's equivalent of being able to create unspun yarn, because you can do low twist singles that are sort of slightly fold, slightly felted, just like the stuff that Rebecca's been talking about recently on the Wool Circle with all of the stunning singles content. But I keep coming back to it and keep thinking about it because I have an entire cake of the Canadian unspun left in my stash from that sweater. And I even have a huge portion of the other original cake. Like I could knit an entire sweater, that entire sweater again. It did shrink lengthwise, and Brittany and I aren't totally sure why, but I think it has something to do with hitting the water and the elasticity in the fibers, the crimp in the fibers, and it shrunk lengthwise. It fits the same. I wear it a lot. I just tuck it in like a cropped shirt, a cropped t-shirt or a cropped sweater, but it did shrink lengthwise a little bit, and I wish I had knit it another inch or two longer so that when it shrunk it would have been at the perfect length. That's my only criticism. So just beware that, like, for me it did shrink a little bit, and I washed it in lukewarm water. It wasn't like overly hot or anything like that. But this idea has been kind of percolating in the back of my mind, and when we were at the show, Brittany had, of Crux Fibers, she's based in Whitehorse, Yukon, if you didn't see that on the Calgary, on the slideshow. She has a, she had this sample in her booth, and she had, a friend of hers had done it in unspun. And I kept coming back to it again and again over the weekend for two reasons. First of all, Nora wants to make another crocheted sweater. She's calling herself a crocheter with a capital C. She's super excited about crochet. She got some yarn this weekend. She's just like really, the number of people this weekend that kept saying to me, start 'em young, start 'em young. It just really reinforced for me that taking her to a show like this and just sort of showing her this whole other side of what goes on when I go to these things, and meeting other people and having them be as excited as I am about this stuff, that like Mom's not just totally weird. I mean, that's totally fine, but it's nice that there's like this whole tribe of people. There's all of these people, and she kept meeting them, and they were so kind to her. And so when I saw this in the booth, it's basically just the Granny Squares hexie pattern, but it's done horizontally instead of in the round. And so when I saw this, I was like, I could totally make this with Nora. She could do her version and I could do mine. So what I ended up doing was I followed what Brittany's friend had done for the sample, and I kind of copied in terms of like the yarn choices that she made. So in her sample, this is the pattern photo of this cardigan. It's the Magnus cardigan by Megan Balmer. But Brittany's, the one that her friend had done, was in sort of a white cream. And then she held, Brittany calls this yak fluff. She held yak fluff with it. And but what it is 72% kid mohair, 28% silk. And so Brittany calls it, oh no, wait, hang on. This isn't her yak fluff. This really is her, yeah, this really is her kid mohair silk. Sorry, I was gonna get her yak fluff, but the colorways didn't work. So I ended up with her kid mohair, her silk mohair lace. So this is Wood Sprite. I'll show you on the big camera in just a second. But this is gonna be the main color. So Brittany and I chatted about what color to choose to hold with this, because this colorway she doesn't have any longer. It was kind of a one-off. This is Woolpool that comes from a mill. She sources it from a mill in Ontario, I think Wellington, but I might be wrong. And I wanted to lighten and brighten it up, because the contrast color in this sweater partially works because it's so light and so bright. So Brittany said, you know, if you use the Wood Sprite, it'll just lighten up that sort of medium dark unspun that you've already got that you want to use up. And then in her friend had used a coral as a contrast. So the unspun was a pink, and then she held with it a coral, and it really worked beautifully. But I've kind of been on a bit of a green jag, and so I decided to go with green instead, and it's quite bright green. I'll hold it back a little bit because you can really get a true sense of the color, but it's quite a bright green. So I wanted to just tone that down a little bit. And so this has beautiful forest green in it, and it is overall green. But like the yarn that Brittany's friend held with it, it's got lots of colors in it, and it's sort of slightly variegated. It's sort of a speckle dye kind of. It's got some purple in there. It's got some white in there. It's got some beautiful gold. So with these held together with just like as the contrast, so think of this as being the gold in this pattern. That's what I'm gonna do. And Brittany was very complimentary. And this colorway, she really kind of helped me because by then I was a bit fried. This was on Sunday. This is called Mystery Bruise. And actually I'll bring it over to the big camera so that you can really see it. Brittany's colors are always beautiful. So much fun. And this is Wood Sprite, so this is the contrast color. And if you don't already follow Brittany on social media, she's at Crux, C-R-U-X, Crux Fibers, spelt the English way, F-I-B-R-E-S. So that was that. And I'm really excited about that project because I have about 4 things that I want to make. I've been really paring down what I want to make. I've been really taking a good hard look. We're not going to talk about it today, but I've been taking a good hard look at what I do in fact wear when I make stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I don't wear, and I need to take a good hard look at what I do wear, what I pull out, what I grab, and really start to think about what I want to wear and what I want to navigate or gravitate to. And that's going to kind of be a project that goes into the fall. So I don't have a lot on the needles right now. I've only got this. So actually technically I have nothing on the needles anymore because as you can see, Jethro has 2 sleeves, which we'll talk about later in the show. But I'm not sure what I'm going to make next, and I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to start anything. So then the other thing that I bought, and I'm really excited about this. I saw this pattern, and let me just go to the next one so that you guys can see. I can't remember the booth. I am so sorry to whomever it was that the booth was, but she was wearing this in a beautiful coral orangey kind of a color that she doesn't actually carry anymore. In this really, really beautiful yarn that was an alpaca flax silk blend, but the flax was a toe flax. And so it was quite textured, fingering weight yarn. She had some beautiful colors, and I kept going back and looking at it because it's a yarn that I would like to try. But I am sensitive to alpaca and llama. I do have to be very careful about what I knit with and what I spin with when it comes to alpaca and llama. It really depends on percentages. It depends on how clean it is. There's all sorts of caveats. And I didn't want to purchase a couple of skeins of yarn when I was quite nervous about the alpaca content of the yarn, but she was wearing this tank top, which is the oolong tee. It was really fun to see everybody's summer knits out because it wasn't super, super hot. It was only a high of 28 degrees every day, 28 degrees Celsius, 26 degrees Celsius, and it was pouring rain on Friday. So Nora and I actually were wearing our rain jackets when we were driving. But so there were quite a few people wearing like summer knits and stuff on Saturday and Sunday, but it wasn't super warm. There were also people just wearing pullovers and heavy sweaters. But by Sunday, it was quite a bit warmer. Anyways, she was wearing this. It wasn't Angel at the Bramble Ridge booth. It was the girl that we talked to, Rebecca, that was in that other booth with the cool yarns. And she was sitting, she had that green tee on Sunday, the second one. She was wearing this the first day, and that was when I first met her. So her and I have very similar coloring, and so I saw this on her in that color, and I was like, oh, I love that. But I was really torn about wanting to buy the yarn for it. So as the day went on Sunday, we ended up, as you saw in the video, we ended up at Melissa's booth at Melly Knits and just hanging out. It was really cool to spend the time with Max and sort of start to chat with him. He spent a long time with Nora, which was amazing. It just made my heart sing. He teaches kids music, and so you can just see that natural teacher in him coming out, and he sat with her. He's so wonderful with her. And sometimes it's good to not always be the mom and the teacher, because of course with home learning and stuff, I do often end up in that role with the kids. And I think it's really good for them to learn from other people. Her and I have our way of communicating and teaching and learning with each other, but I really appreciated it when he came over and sat next to her and kind of took over. I was fried. I was so tired, and she really desperately wanted to learn. So I started chatting with Melissa, and I was telling her about a course that we're developing for Sweet Georgia. And this got caught on the bag. It was my fault. But she had a few of these left, and I kept going back to them, kept going back to them. So this is a CVM from Chasin' It Farms in South Dakota, but she blended it with 20% organic cotton from Cotton Man in North Carolina. He's actually a farm. And a 10% mulberry silk. And you can see Aaron, her husband, had blended it with sort of this corally orange with some hits of tealy blue and turquoise blue and whatnot. That was the sari silk. So the color in this is very, very, very subtle. There were 6 of these. There were 2 that were purple, 2 green, but very, very tasteful, very like forest green, but like this, very, very faded. And then this one that was almost a bit tropical, sort of with the oranges and the blues in there. It's no better from the other side in terms of seeing it. It is so subtle. But because of this course that I'm developing right now with School of Sweet Georgia, I kept coming back to it again and again and again. And because I'm so nervous about alpaca and having control over how much alpaca I add to something, how much I work with, and I'm not hives, anaphylactic reaction to llama and alpaca. It's more stuffy nose, congestion, pressure in my eyes, watering eyes. It's more of it manifests like seasonal allergies, and it's usually within about half an hour of working with it. So do you guys remember years and years ago that meadow yarn that I developed off of one of the other blends from the fiber company? I wanted to see if I could recreate it with the toe flax, the alpaca, the silk, and what did we use for that? Did we use BFL? I can't remember now. The wool content of it, I think I used BFL. I think I had a whole bunch of undyed combed top BFL in my stash at the time, and I think that's what I used. Because I know when I did the Cumbria blend, that was Massam and BFL. Anyhow, yeah, it's like a histamine reaction, exactly. So I kept coming back to this again and again and again. This is the original CVM lock, which is just beautiful. And I thought, you know, I am going to spin for this shirt. So I have 2 of these. I'm going to do my sampling that I need to do for the School of Sweet Georgia. And Melissa and I have a date for me to come over to her house and chit chat everything cotton with her, which will be really, really fun. And talk about blending it, talk about, you know, adding it to stuff, talk about just all the things. And then once I do my sampling and sort of put that all together, I don't want to mess these up. That's why they're not up here on the counter. Then I will start spinning for my t-shirt. And it's a fingering weight. It's not super, 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 it's not a yarn pig. It doesn't take a ton of yarn. But I wanted to knit it like the one that I saw at the show. She was wearing it with quite a bit, with a bit of positive ease. So the sample, a friend of hers had knit it for her as a sample knit. She had asked her to knit it at 1 size bigger, so it gave her lots of positive ease. She can wear a tank top underneath if she wants to. It wasn't quite as fitted as the one here in this photo, which I had turned off. It wasn't quite as fitted as, although this still has positive ease, hers was even a little tiny bit bigger. So she said she was between sizes when they were picking sizes, and she ended up going to the bigger size, and she was very similar in size to me. So I think I'm gonna knit size C, like a letter C. It's A, B, C, D is the sizing. So I think I'm gonna copy her and knit size C, and that one requires about 800 yards of yarn. So yeah, she says about 625 yards of yarn. So I'll spin about 650, and then I'll be able to cast on. I'll work on it this winter, and hopefully have it ready for next spring, which will be really fun. So I actually am feeling excited about that. I've had a couple of things in my queue for a long time on Ravelry that I'm just not feeling quite as excited about anymore. And like I said, we'll talk about it in the fall, probably in the September episodes, but I'm going through and just clearing stuff out and having a really good hard look at what is it that I do wear. What am I excited to wear, and making more of that. The blend ratios, Dion, are 10% mulberry silk, 20% organic cotton, and then the rest of it, the 70%, is the CVM. And it's a toothy CVM. It's not a super, super, super fine CVM. I mean, it's all relative, right? Because I think this is super soft, but if you give it to somebody else who maybe has more sensitivity than I do, like who has a little bit more, sensitivity, maybe feels the prickle factor just a little bit more than I do, would say this was a little bit coarser. This is probably like 30 micron, probably, I would assume. It's a slightly more medium CVM, but like it's still super soft. So I'm not a great person to ask about softness because I think everything is soft. I'm terrible. I'm really bad. Like if you take me to, oh, you know what, Rebecca, I think it is. I think it was Horizon Fibers that was wearing this shirt. Thank you. Yes, I think so. Yeah, if you give me pretty much anything, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so soft. Oh yeah, that's so soft. And then other people are like, no. So bad. All right, let's talk about spindles, because spindles are super fun and I love talking about spindles. And it was funny, I was chatting with somebody in one of the booths, and she's just new to spinning, and so, Brittany wanted to introduce us and hopefully foster her and get her going. And her name was Brittany as well, which was really cool. And I was saying to her, you know, in our community, in the woolen spinning community, when it first started, it was all wheel spinners. And we had like 1 or 2 spindle spinners, namely Diana Twiss and Becca, who you guys know from book club, Becca Roy. So it was really just those 2 women that were like really committed to spindle spinning, like really celebrating spindles, talking about spindles, almost exclusively spinning on spindles. Like it was really just the 2 of them. And now 10 years later, I said to Brittany, it's 6 and 1/2 does the other if somebody spindle spins or wheel spins primarily, because almost everybody in the community does both and they don't do either exclusively, which is really cool. I am so thankful that that is the case. So let's talk about the Malacate spindle first. So these were from Melissa of Melly Knits. Her husband, Aaron, has family, I think it was, Rebecca, you're going to have to help me here because it's all a little bit of a blur. But her husband's, I think it was his abuela, so his grandmother, is Mexican, and they had connected with them. She's passed away since then, but they were able to connect when they were down there. And with the, I'm going to butcher this because my Spanish accent is absolutely terrible, but it's the Colectiva Malacate. So Colectiva _Malacate in Mexico. They made them, they connected with them. Melissa did a deep dive with them and sort of got educated, and they made them a whole bunch of shorter Malacate spindles and then a whole bunch of these longer Malacate spindles that are meant to be spun on the floor. So Maxwell had his spinning really beautifully down his thigh, and Melissa had a couple of photos and a couple of videos of, I think it was actually of Aaron's abuela actually spinning on one of these, where she actually had it upright sort of out from her, like you saw in the video of me and Rebecca spinning. I found over time that the longer we spun that way and the longer we did that, I naturally kind of turned the spindle so that it was spinning more like this. But Melissa was saying that one of the things that she was finding with these is they dance a lot. So if I put it here on the table, you're not going to see the whole thing like really super well, but just watch the shaft of the spindle. You see how it dances quite a lot? So none of us thought that it was because of the bead whirl per se. It's because the shafts are hand carved. They're not like done, you know, perfectly like we're all used to on a lathe. And so when you're spinning on it, it dances quite a lot, but some of them dance more than others. And so what we were finding was all of us sort of started to develop our own way of managing the spindle and holding the spindle. So like I said, Max started putting it on his thigh. Rebecca had it really upright next to her, and she was sitting up really super tall. Rebecca's also taller than me, so I think that was part of it. It didn't push her shoulder, into a weird angle. It looked really like it fit her, and sort of, it looked very graceful actually. And then I sort of slowly, brought it down a little bit more, like sort of how you see some people using supported spindles when they're spinning, sort of in front of them on a table. They'll hold the spindle at an angle like this. And we just, like, we're off to the races with these things, and we started playing with them, and we all brought one home, and Melissa was so generous. She gave one to Nora as well, which was just, thank you, Melissa, if you're watching this, thank you. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. So very, very thankful for that experience. These whirls are made out of their hands. Correct me, Rebecca, if you help me out here. They were hand made with the clay and then glazed. So it's red clay underneath, and they're hand shaped. So Melissa still has a bunch there. She can't ship them. They're way too long. They don't fit. It ends up being like $100 for shipping and stuff. But there are shorter ones that you can get, and she does have some that are more like half of this length that are longer than the short ones. That she's hoping to get from them, because they've just been sending them up to her. And I guess the collective down in Mexico, I guess when they see us posting about their spindles and spinning on their spindles, it makes their day. And they just think it's so unbelievably special. So if you do have one of these Malacate spindles and you saw one, or you have a smaller one or a shorter one, please tag them. It's just incredible. And of course, it's lovely to learn these traditional spindling practices from these different areas of the world that are still doing them. Like, talk about incredibly, incredibly special. So that spindle will hold a very special place in my heart for a very long time. And I have to figure out how I'm going to store it, because selfishly, I'd really like to display it, but I also want to practice on it. So yeah, super fun. I'm just going to cruise the chat for just a second. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So Kendall was saying they just fell down a rabbit hole again, ordered Cheviot and old Norwegian sheep wool from a local farmer. That sounds amazing. Christine was wondering about the sweater garment, the tank top that I'm going to make. Yeah, she says for a garment that will be warm in warmer months, I do like a bit more positive ease. It's funny, because I was thinking the same thing, because sometimes I've got a couple of things that I've made over the years, especially because my shape has changed over the years, and losing weight, gaining weight, all that kind of stuff. Having kids, the stuff that I've made that's now a little bit what I would call a closer fit or a neat fit, that's summer or warmer weather knitwear, warmer weather stuff. I've got a couple of sweaters, like the Poet, for example, out of Superwash. It's very lightweight, but it's just a little bit too neat. Like, it's a bit too tight fitting. If it was another few inches bigger and just gave me a little bit more ease, because again, my shape has changed, I would wear it more, because it's so lovely in the warmer weather. But you just don't want something suction cupped to you, So yeah, Christine says wanties. Totally. Rebecca was saying in the chat, thank you, Rebecca. She does have shorter ones, and they that are more normal length, that are more what we're used to making. The other thing I would say is see if you can make your own. It's a shaft and then a hand shaped whirl out of clay that's then glazed, and you've got the flat surface to build your cop against. So somebody had started building the cop up higher on this one, but really what you want to do is push it down a little bit further so you can build your cop more like here. The one that Nora ended up taking was the one that I actually started on, that I was actually my favorite of the batch. It was a little bit heavier. This one is nice and heavy as well. The heavier ones, I felt for myself, it gave you a firmer, more steady spin, even though the shaft, these shafts are going to dance a little bit. But hers was getting more and more loaded, because quite a few of us had spun on it. So I started it, and then people started adding to it, and then Max was sitting with her for such a long time helping her that it ended up getting quite a little cop built on it. It was starting to spin very smoothly. And as she's learning how to flick a spindle and how to keep it going and how to cradle it and hold it, which he was helping her with, that's going to start to spin really beautifully as she loads more fiber onto it. So yeah, just something to think about. Just because it starts off dancing a little bit doesn't mean that it's not going to still be a lovely spin. All right, this. Oh, let's talk about this. This is very special, and Helen, I consider Helen a friend of mine, even though we don't know each other really, really super well, but she is just such good people. She is such good people. This is a hollow whirl spindle. So I actually asked Helen, just like so many of us in our community, is an introvert, and I'm an introvert, and I don't know, some of you are probably like, really? But I'm very much an introvert. And I just love having quiet conversations with Helen. Like she's so thoughtful. So she comes from a math and physics background. And one of the things that she's been thinking about recently is how some of our tools, how we could create some of our tools that AI wouldn't actually ever be able to come up with, that AI would never be able to invent and to make, that you couldn't put this into a 3D printer, and a 3D printer physically could not make this. And I just think the math behind that is so cool, and how her brain works is so incredible. And she explained to me and Rebecca the whole thing about how she makes these, and how they all come together, how she buffs them to pull up the wood grain, because it's not the shape of the wood is not in a traditional way that, like a shaft, you know, you can pull up the wood grain really super easily. On these you can't, because of the shape of it. And so choosing a hard enough wood, so this is sugar cherry maple. I think it's sugar maple. I'm positive. I know it's Canadian maple, but I'm positive it's sugar maple. So it's a creating them so that they have the wood grain come up, even though it's not a natural state for the wood to be in, that you would naturally pull up the wood grain. It's very complicated. I'm going to completely butcher explaining these things to you guys. So I asked her if she would come on Wool and Spinning Radio and tell us all about these, and she said yes. So I'm going to send her an email this week. I will get that organized in September to see if she will come on and tell us all about these hollow whirl spindles, why she created them, what the impetus was behind creating them, what she was thinking about while she was creating them, some of the nuances of creating the getting the wood grain to come up. And if you can see the sort of, it's almost like a clover leaf shape, kind of. The bottom of the clover leaf comes in ever so slightly more, so it makes these really cool, if you look at the top and the bottom, it makes this really cool kind of flying bird shape. Like it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So the spin. Helen, so if you guys follow Rebecca on Instagram, which if you don't, you need to, it's at Osborne Fiber, spelt the American way, Siber, and she often is spinning on Helen's square whirl supported spindles. And so this, I don't have mine right here, but they are, they give you quite a firm, steady spin. This is that all over again, but even faster. So this gives you an even, like sort of what I would consider a slightly faster spin, but heavy and firm and so steady. It just goes and 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 goes. So I'm just so excited to get some fiber onto this. This was definitely the highlight for me of what I brought home. The fleeces were a highlight because they were just so special, and we saw them right away. It felt very kismet that they were there. That's what I was looking for, and they just were there. But this felt like one of those really special finds that Helen was, you could just see, she just lit right up when she was talking about them. It was so much fun to see her talking about it, and how her thought process, her creativity, all of that. So I'm really excited to share all of that with you. So Helen is, I go on and on about Helen like you guys know, but you should know. Helen is Helen. Like she is the bomb. I'm finding her card. I always have Helen's cards on the table here. And her motto is sawdust is my glitter. Okay, this is Helen. So Maudsley Fiber Arts. And you can find her on Instagram, Maudsley Fiber Arts. And if you look at her her Instagram reels, she has a whole bunch of reels about this spindle. It doesn't have the information about like why she created it and what the impetus was behind it all. but it has, it shows how they spin in different types. And she brought 2 to the show, and I just felt so unbelievably touched that I was able to get one. It was just amazing. So Maudsley Fiber Arts. It's funny, I know her name is Helen, and I've always known her name was Helen. And I've had some very comical interactions with Helen over the years because she's a very funny person, like very dry, very droll. You'll miss her humor if you aren't paying attention because she's so clever. And for whatever reason, I always think of her as Maudsley. And every time I say her name, I have to stop myself and think about it because I always want to say Maudsley, but like that's not her name. Although she'd probably think it was funny if I called her Maudsley or Mauds. So my grandmother was Maud, and she was illiterate. And she didn't know how to spell her name. So on some of her legal documentation, there's very little documentation. But on a few of her things, like her birth certificate, her name is spelled one way. But then on other documentation, her name was spelled differently. So whenever I hear like Maudsley, Maud, I think of my grandmother, my dad's mom. And she spelled it M-A-U-D-E on her birth certificate, but M-A-U-D on a whole bunch of other legal documents. So we're pretty sure it's because they were illiterate. Very, very poor at that time. Okay, I think that's everything. Let's talk a little bit about knitting, and let's talk a little bit about, and then we'll see where we're at. We might save community participation for next time just because I do want to keep the show relatively under control this week. But I would like to share with you a little bit about my Jethro. That's not the right one. So I finished Jethro while we were gone. I'm just gonna move this so I can move over. I did finish Jethro while we were away. We actually did knit quite a bit while we were gone. I was glad that I took a project with me. I also took my drop spindling, but I was actually kind of, I didn't even pull it out once. I showed one of my drop spindles to Max on the one day because it was one of my new Ed Pretty spindles, and it just spins so beautifully, and I wanted to share that with Max. But other than that, I didn't spindle spin at all, and I was glad not to have brought my supported spindles because I was going to throw them in at the last minute, but I don't really have a project for them right now. So I think if I had brought them, it just would have been one more thing that I would have brought home. But I did get this done. So I was just on at the start of this sleeve. I had to pick up all of the stitches and I had to knit the sleeve, and I finished this last night when we were watching a movie. So it's totally done. It was actually this one, but that's okay. So I knit the sleeves a little bit with a bit more positive ease and kind of a little bit more of that bell shape that has been really popular recently. I did a whole bunch of decreases at the bottom here before I started the ribbing. So I did knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1. I could have done knit 2 together, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, but I thought that would be a little bit too, it would cinch it in a little bit too much because I wanted the cuff to be about 8 inches. So I needed about 80 stitches. Sorry, I needed about 40 stitches, and knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together gave me 40 stitches in the end. I'm really, really happy with this, and I will show, I've got the buttons here. They need to be sewn on. They are here. They're from Pearl and Hank. They actually were at the show, and I almost bought more buttons, but I was like, I've got quite a few, and I haven't sewn them on any of the sweaters yet, so I'll save it for next year. The one thing I will say, we'll talk about this next time because it'll be completely done next time. It'll be washed and blocked, and I'll hopefully have some photos. I wove in all of the ends as I was going on each square. So as I was crocheting each of the granny squares, when I had about 3 or 4, I would stop and go back and weave in all of the ends. So by the time I started crocheting them all together with the crochet border, I didn't have any ends left to weave in except for a couple of the corners of the blocks. So I didn't weave in the last corner of each block. So now what's happened is I basically only have a few ends left to weave in. This is where I connected border yarn, so there's nothing I can do about that. But I am so glad that I did that, because if I had all of these ends, and I'll show you guys the back of the sweater, if I had all of these ends to now go back and weave in, I think my will to finish this sweater would completely dry up. It's just so overwhelming. So weave in your ends as you go. These solid blocks, I wove in the ends immediately. I have a few of them. I did each breed. I did one solid block for each breed. So there's about, I don't actually know how many solid blocks there are, but like in the back here, there's three solid blocks on the back of 3 different breeds. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then so seven different breeds are in this sweater. And I'll throw it on quickly for you guys so you can see it. And then we'll talk about it next show. But I'm so happy with how this turned out. I got too warm and I took off my other sweater, but this is just, oh, I love it. And it doesn't look too dated. It still looks modern. The sleeves came out perfectly. They're a little bit, there's lots of positive ease, but they're comfortable, but they don't look massive. I am so happy with it. It's really warm. It's so hot. I also, one of the other things about this sweater that I thought was really important to point out was, I think part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much was it was a completely different craft. So yes, there's knitting in it. All of your ribbing is all knit. The ribbing on the bottom, the sleeves are knit. But being able to put something together that was just totally using a different craft and learning something new. I've done granny squares in the past, but just being able to crochet something and do something different, it was a breath of fresh air. So, and I've had some very, very frustrating things happen in the background that are to do with some other things that I'm involved in. This summer's been it's been a very challenging summer. And it was so nice to pick up this project, not have this massive sweater sitting on my lap. I just had the squares. If I did 2 in an evening, that was great. If I did 6, that was great. It was really nice to do something different. And I really appreciate this pattern. It's very simple for the non-crocheters out there. You'll be fine. And it's super wearable. Yeah, Rebecca says it looks super, super wearable. I'm really happy with the length. I'm glad I added those extra squares. I would be very frustrated if it was quite a bit shorter. Although it would be cute because it would be kind of a cropped sweater. And then if you made it with a bunch of positive ease and you had it, if you could button it at the front and it was just like a cropped, cute, that would actually work really well. So I shouldn't be so quick to say that this was the only way, because I think if I had added another row under the arms and then it came forward and it was like a cute little crop and you could tuck it in to a high-waisted jeans, that would work as well. So I know Felicia's making it right now with a minis set from Sweet Georgia, and the colors are just fantastic. So lots and lots of options, lots of ways to make it. I'm really happy with how this sweater came out. All right, why don't we try to do some... Yeah, I do. Rebecca said, I know you wear those longer sweaters more. It's true, and I do tend to grab for them more. I have a corally ready kind of sweater that I picked up in Portland a couple of years ago. I wear it all the time. So I took the measurements from that, and that's how I came up with this shape when I was adding the squares and where to put them and whatnot. And like I took that sweater with me to Calgary this weekend, for example. And I think that hopefully this will end up being the default one that I grab over the other one, because I love the other one. But I want to be able to, I want the default to be my stuff. I want to wear my stuff. So, all right. Why don't we do some community participation and then we'll say goodbye. Let's do that next. And I've talked enough. And so now it's time to showcase your stuff. I was just thinking, I was like, we'll finish the podcast, we'll finish the live stream, and then I've got a couple of things I need to do to finish up being home and like unpacking, that kind of stuff. I need to get a pound of wool measured out so that I can get that started to be washed. And then I was like, maybe I'll just sit on the couch and watch a movie. That's kind of about where I'm at. All right. Let's, Spindle Spun Summer, we talked about this already. Spindle Spun Season. We changed it to season to capture Down Under because there's so many people in our community that are from Down Under. And they're all spindling right now as well, so which is wonderful. So Spindle Spun Season. This is from Simone. I'm going to move myself actually because I had moved myself before for one of our other streams, but now I can move myself back. Update on my spindling as trying to stay to 15 minutes a day, which is wonderful, Simone. Some days we miss it, but I'm enjoying it. Decided to divide 100-gram braid into 3 for a 3-ply, and I'm contemplating spindling a third on one shaft and starting the next one. So this is one of those really cool spindles, and I don't know if it's from Dancing Goat or not, but they do have these types of spindles where you get 3 shafts and you move the whirl as you spin. So your singles are already stored and you don't have to rewind them and move them around. Ah, Christine, yes. This is from Fionn. Happy with this skein I just finished. It's 100 grams from my Guts Club. That's one of the clubs that is offered by Melly Knits. Washed fiber that I picked and carded. Support Spindle Spun 3-ply, about 180 yards. Amazing, Fionn. I really enjoyed the Sari Silk and the Chaos Bats on my spindles. This is incredible. Beautiful yarn. I hope, Fionn, that you don't stash this, that you make it into a toque or something, because this is just gorgeous yarn. This is from Stephanie. The end of our Colorado trip was less than ideal due to a sick kid and a 7-hour flight delay. I'm so sorry that happened to you. On the other hand, sick kids and flight delays are what spindle spinning is made for. While away, I finished one lace weight mini skein of 80/20 Rambo Tussa Silk as a 2-ply, some additional singles of that blend, as well as 100% Falkland, and wove a mini sample using the 2-plied either with themselves or each other, or as for both warp and weft. Isn't that little sample beautiful? I just love that, and that yarn is gorgeous. I'll continue spinning the singles on my Turkish spindles, but we'll rewind them into weaving bobbins before applying. Beautiful. Yeah, I think so too, Christine. That's great. I'm glad I'm not the only one that I think Simone went with Dancing Goats, because I know there was a bunch of people in our community that were helping her and getting her, like, giving her advice and stuff, and I'm pretty sure that it was Dancing Goats. All right, our emotional chicken along started yesterday. I hope you guys had a cast-on party for me, because I was not there. I know there was a sewing party yesterday morning, but I was thinking later, I was like, oh, we should have organized a cast-on party. Anyhow, our emotional chicken along, we're making the emotional support chickens on Ravelry. There's a crocheted version if you guys want to make a crocheted version. And this one is from Sam. She had a lovely day, so Clara agreed to let me photograph her to share with you. She is entirely made using hand spun. Her tail was some core spun that I made while I was in Queries, and her green stripes were from my ironwork jumper, which I wear frequently, and her main body is 2023's Distaff Spin. I love that this has ended up being like a memory chicken. Every time I spin a quantity of fiber, I placed a tuft in a pot, and on Distaff Day I placed the contents of the pot on my drum carder. I blended it and then I spin it up. I plied it with some white BFL as there wasn't a very great quantity in the pot. Her crown and wattle was from my 2023 Advent spin. Clara is named after a chicken that showed up on my mother-in-law's doorstep out of nowhere and adopted my mother-in-law. She would even hop in the car and go for car rides. Amazing. I love that. Everybody needs a chicken kennel. Everybody. So cool. Yeah, I totally forgot to. You guys don't worry. Try and cast them on this week, and then we can start talking about them in the next episode, because the next live stream is on September 3rd. So hopefully people will have some cast on for then, and I can share them. Fiber prep group. You guys meet. Oh no, this is yeah, Fiber Prep is the group that alternates with weaving on Friday mornings. This is from Dania. She purchased the guts from Melly Knits a while back, and she blended them on her drum carder after picking up the fiber. The fiber is incredibly soft and bouncy. It's beautiful, Dania. Gorgeous bat. I just love it. I love the tissue paper that Melissa uses. She folds it in half. It's just sort of a champagne taupey brown kind of tissue paper. She folds it in half, but it's a great way of preserving the bat. I'm finding that the bats aren't getting quite as beaten up. It's really nice. I might steal that from Melissa actually and use that for mine going forward before I break them down into, because what I tend to do with my bats is I break them down into nests of fiber like that. So they're all little nests. I don't keep them as bats, but I'm tempted to try this other method for storing before I want to spin them. This is just general makes and shares. This is from Dion. These colors, Dion, amazing. My cotton is washed and wound and it's time to ply. I can't wait to see this yarn finished. And I am sure, Dion, that you shared it over the weekend. Maybe you didn't, but I feel like you've probably already plied this and I've just missed it because of being away. But I will scroll back and have a look because, oh my goodness, this yarn is beautiful. This is also from Dion. So she's been working on a sweater spin for her daughter. Her daughter asked her for a oversized cardigan, something that was really cozy. And so she took these colors and she carded them all up. She's doing a 3-ply woolen style with 2 woolen spun singles and 1 worsted spun single. And that's the yarn there. It's just beautiful. Dion's sense of color is always just incredible. The color shifts through a variety of greens, pops of brown, and there is the halo comes from the Gotland and the Surrey alpaca. Her daughter is being spoiled, you guys, spoiled. Yeah, Rebecca says, oh my word, these colors, Dion. Yes. This is from Dania as well. Beautiful yarn. She did a snack spin, 104 grams, 310 yards, 2-ply gradient spin. Stripping the blended top helped to blend it up, to spin it up incredibly fast. Beautiful. This is really cool. This is from Becca. So she's the one that runs Book Club. She's been a part of our community since day one. She did 2 tests. She's doing her spinning, her master spinner certificate through her guild in Scotland, in Glasgow. And it's she's got all these experiments that she has to do now as her final portfolio. And so these are tests that she's been doing. And so every single one, we find her comments overly critical because we're like, but those yarns are beautiful. What were you thinking? But she's reflecting on it from the perspective of a final yarn for a final project. So she's knitting swatches and she's trying all these different yarns and all these different percentages and all these different blends. So this has Rami in it and a bunch of other stuff. And then she's sort of eventually going to land on one that's for her final project. So she's felt that the first was a little bit too desaturated because of all the white that she blended in, and then the second was a little bit better, but too much sari silk. So all these different iterations of the yarn that she's going to, which I think is just awesome. I love this kind of stuff. This is from Mary. Isn't this cute? I love this toque. It's a Musselburgh hat. This hand spun from Deep Stash was perfect for an on-the-go project. It's 100% Falkland from 3 Waters Farm. It's been to the beach, in a fair barn, down by the creek, and book club. Even the child, large, adult, small is 17 inches in the round, so I just knit and knit. Beautiful. Yeah, she's definitely going to have to do more pin loom squares. So the joke is Becca bought a pin loom, a bigger one. And so she's been doing all these samples on her pin loom for her certificate. But she had to practice to make sure that she could get really even tension and have these beautiful squares. So she's already made, like, what is it, you guys? Like something like 40 squares. So now we're like, every time she spins something, we're like, oh, you should make that into a pin loom sample. She's going to have pin loom samples coming out of her, like, they're going to be coming out of her house. They're going to take up so much space. They're just not even going to be manageable. This was a test knit that Dion did this past week, and for Beth McDonald Stone. And I just wanted to draw your attention to the hem and to that incredible texture. Dion did a wool silk combo that she blended and then she knitted up. And isn't that yarn on the bottom there that she created for that sort of look of, like, it's like swells of the water? Just beautiful. Gorgeous, Dion. Love that. This is from Lisa, mini capstone, a cap pebble maybe instead of a stone. I love that. Based on a 6-point CMY color wheel with a little black added into each baby bat. The secondary colors are pretty, although I do wish I had I had run the orange through the carder one more time. You can see that the orange isn't quite as blended as some of the other colors. It sort of comes out as more of like a purpley yellow. The black was hand dyed and supposed to be a light medium gray. Do not trust your scale when the batteries are dying. Yes, so watch how much dye you're adding. But I thought the black came out beautifully, and now it's a true CMYK color wheel. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. That's what K stands for in CMYK. So now it's a true digital color wheel. I was able to exhaust the dye. Can't even fathom what the depth of shade really was. Doesn't matter, Lisa, you nailed it. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing everything that you do and for being so prolific with your making and sharing it here in our community, but also being so supportive of one another and so unbelievably kind and forthcoming with your knowledge. Part of the reason why I have so much to share and I feel like I have so much sort of just base knowledge of all of this stuff is because of how much you guys have shared over the years. So thank you so much for teaching me, for teaching each other. It really has made a huge difference over the years and made it such a rich community to be a part of. I am off to wash fleece. Probably 2, not 3. I just threw the third one on the floor. Now it's going to be mad at me. That's okay. This is the one that I want to wash the most, which is the BFL Corey Cross. So maybe it won't be too mad at me because I pick it first. Anyhow, I hope you guys have a wonderful couple of weeks. I will see you here again next week, same time, same place for the Wool Circle. I'm glad you guys enjoyed a slightly different format for the show because, when we've had a big festival like this, there's lots to talk about. I would like to say a very, very special shout out to Mario's Towing. They are based out of Hope, British Columbia. They also have places in Merritt and Kelowna. They are expanding to Revelstoke. We got their whole life story from the two of them. Specifically to Jeff and Ryan for rescuing us on the Coquihalla when I had no cell service. That was very, very scary. I felt incredibly vulnerable because I had a young child with me. Because for all Nora is so, so mature and so lovely and wonderful, I definitely felt a bit worried about the situation that we were in with no service on our cell phones. On my cell phone, Nora doesn't have one. And really at the mercy of sort of who came by. I'm just really, really thankful to them that everything worked out. It was funny, like they loaded up the car and we're heading back to Surrey because our mechanic is in Surrey. And so it was a good hour and 45-minute drive. And we kind of got Jeff's life story, and as soon as he found out I was a nurse, he was telling me about all these things. He's got 9 kids and he's married, and I thought to myself, and he kept saying to me, he's like, we're not leaving you here. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. We want to make sure you guys are safe. You become very aware of who's around you in those situations and the type of people that are around. And the reality is that the people that are working, that are out there and driving trucks, and we happened to make it to an sort of, it's like a quasi entrance onto the Coquihalla that we were able to pull onto to get off the highway itself, but you're on the side of a cliff, you're in the mountains. It actually turned out that it was a pipeline site, so it's one of the work sites for the pipeline. You become very aware immediately that it's all men. And there's no slagging against men at all. It's just that I'm a woman with a young child and my car is completely dead. And no, it wasn't my battery, it was my fuel injector. So, I was very, very, very aware. And so when I was talking to them and dealing with them, Nora stayed in the car was locked. I told her she absolutely had to stay there. And she did everything that I told her to do, and she was awesome. So I made her jump on the other side of it while we were waiting, because we had to wait and hope that somebody came by, kind of thing. I made her jump onto the other side of the barrier because I didn't want to be on the highway side, but I made her jump on the other side of the barrier and pee, because I was like, there will be no more pee breaks. There will be nowhere to go when a tow truck comes, because they go up and down there quite regularly, because people do break down and people do stupid things, and it's a steady climb the whole way up, and people overheat and batteries die on electric vehicles and all sorts of stuff happens. semis lose their loads. Like it's a crazy highway. So I made her jump on the other side of the barrier and I forced her to pee because I was like, there will be no more pee breaks from now until whenever we get rescued. And sure enough, they loaded us into the truck. They did not stop. And I'm not criticizing them. They have a job to do. They want to get back out there. They get paid per the tow. So the number of people they rescue is how they get paid. And the distance that they have to drive to take people where they want to go for mechanic stuff, like for getting fixed. So I told her she had to pee and she wasn't allowed to drink anything. And she did. She was a rock star. So anyhow, that is my story. I hope you guys stay safe. And the truck was rock solid. Mike loaded us into the truck. Him and James biked everywhere this weekend. They had a great weekend. They did not care at all that they didn't have a vehicle. My mom is available if they needed one. And so yeah, people were saying, don't they have stationary emergency phones? Yeah, so the thing is, so Rebecca, I think, answered this really well. It's not like a large highway. It's too remote. So yeah, Rebecca says it's so remote that it's hard to fathom. You are also so incredibly high up. The elevation is so high. There are no cell phone towers. There is no service. People have to use satellite phones. And I think if I were to do something like this again, we usually take a satellite phone with us when it's our family, especially when the kids were really little. We always traveled with a sat phone. I think I would maybe do that again. And I talked to the tow truck driver about that, and he said a lot of people do carry something with them when they're traveling like that. And he said it's becoming more common because there's no service. And it's not like there's no service for a minute or two and it comes in and out. We're talking like no service for like 2 hours. So like even when we loaded up on the tow truck, driving back toward the city, we still had an hour to drive before we hit any form of civilization, but there's still no service. So we actually didn't get service for about an hour and 15 minutes until we got back to where there's service. And it's because these highways are literally carved out on the side of the mountain. And so, yeah, it's hard to fathom when you haven't been on some of these roads. They're not scary. They're just, you have to be aware of your safety. And you're right on the side of the highway. There's nowhere to pull off. And my intensive care unit actually exists because of this highway. So maybe that puts things in perspective a little bit. So I'm glad to be home. I'm so glad that we went and that we saw Rebecca. My friend Kylie was so confused as to why we were still going. She's like, why? Why? Like, just go home. Like, don't try to come again. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's because of Rebecca. And she was like, oh, Rebecca's going to be there. Oh, okay, I get it. So we probably wouldn't have tried again if it hadn't have been for having this all planned. So that's it. That's all. I'm going to go on and on about that. I tried not to talk about it all weekend because I was sick of talking about it, and I knew I would share about it on the phone. And yeah, I'm done talking about it. It happened, and I'm glad that we're safe. I think I will see you guys next Tuesday for the Wool Circle. Rebecca will have a really great stream for you guys organized, and I hope you guys have a really great week and make lots of stuff. And I'll see you guys then. Bye, everyone.